Those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all Nerds International. With the hyphen. Nerds International proudly presents.
We want to take you on a quest for knowledge. One that will take us from ancient medieval fantasy across the far reaches of space to the distant future. To many savage worlds.
Welcome to the Wild Eye Podcast, episode 48. This is a podcast dedicated to Pinnacle Entertainment's savage worlds, aimed at beginners and veterans alike. This is our part 2 of our Savage Black panel, and for this episode, we talk about the new states. We also talk about rounds, turns, and action that was specified in the rules in Savage Flash Gordon. And then finally, we talk a little bit about the creative combat table. What is that? Well, just listen and find out. And then we start discussing the new combat options like extreme range and the changes to grappling. And now, loosen up. It's time to boogie.
You're listening to the Wild Eye Podcast. You're listening to the Wild Eye Podcast. You're listening to the Wild Eye Podcast. You're listening to the Wild Eye Podcast.
Listen to the Wild Eye Podcast. Listen to the Wild Eye Podcast. Listen to the Wild Eye Podcast. Listen to the Wild Eye Podcast.
Yeah, all right. I think we've talked about skills enough. Let's move on to the rest. Something here that they define better are rounds, turns, and action. So they basically, like I said, it's clearly defined now.
That's it's nice. It's clean. I mean, it's not different to what it was before, but it's just better worded, I think.
Yeah, I mean, basically it says, let's look at it here. A round is an entire countdown of action cards from the ace to the deuce. A turn is a character's turn. So when this action card comes up, that's your turn. And an action is a single action, single attack, a skill use, that type of thing. So you can perform more than one action per turn. And so, I think everybody that's played it kind of got this, but to make it clear like that, it's good.
Well, it's going to change one thing, and that is with the duration for spells, because the way I think people are playing it now is the duration starts when you actually cast it, which most likely wouldn't change because that would mean a whole lot of backpedaling all the time. But the duration is given in rounds. So that actually means that when the duration runs out, when you are on your last round of the duration, the spell is going to last until the end of that round, not until the player who cast it takes his turn on that round, which is how it's handled, at least in all the games I've been a part of at the moment, where a spell begins and ends on the turn of the casting player. And now it would just last a bit longer because it would last the full last round.
Yeah, because I know sometimes like you would be last in a turn, in a round, you'd cast your spell, and if it's only one round, the next round, then you're on the top of the round, and your spell ends right there. So, yeah, I like that better.
There's no mention here of holding your card. None of this you've seen changes how that works?
Not that we know.
No, not according to this. Yeah, you still can go and hold.
Cool.
All right. The new states. So basically, if you've played Savage Worlds before, you know there's basically only Shaken. But is there? I mean, there were other states that were hidden in there that didn't really have a name, specifically for tricks and test of wills that now have been changed slightly and given a name. Also, before, if you remember, before they changed the shaken recovery rules, where you no longer needed a race to be able to act. At that time, basically, when you were shaken, it was really two states. You had shaken and cannot act. And when you rolled just a 4, a success, shaken was removed, but you still had the cannot act state. You needed a raise to get rid of both. Of course, now that state that cannot act doesn't exist. It's just shaken. But now, yeah, they've been defined better. Basically, distracted and vulnerable. When you're distracted, is the character suffers -2 to all trait rolls. And there's vulnerable actions and attacks against a target are made at +2. This doesn't stack with the drop. Use only the highest. So the vulnerable basically changes for test of wills, because before, if you rolled just a success, you would get a +2 against that target, but it was only you that got that +2. Now the whole group gets a +2, which to me becomes a more viable option during combat. I can see people using it more now, because what's the point of getting a +2 and then not doing anything? You wait for your next turn, and your next turn comes and the guy's already down. So there's no point. So yeah, there's those two for tricks. So with tricks, you become distracted, and we'll get into the changes to tricks and test of wills in a little bit. But yeah, with tricks, it's distracted, and test of wills, it's vulnerable. And then you have entangled and bound, which defines grappling better, helps define it. Reading the book, they say they did that because a lot of creatures have tentacles and that kind of stuff. So they needed to define it better. It changes also the entangle power that we'll hopefully get to talk about later as well. But basically, entangled, the victim can't move and is distracted. That's quite the advantage there. And bound, the victim may not move, is distracted and vulnerable, and cannot make physical actions other than trying to break free. That's why when I said, with athletics, grappling, you can really disable someone with grappling rules now. What do you guys think?
My only concern with it is if I've got myself wrapped around someone, and I've got them pinned and all the rest of it, the last thing I want is someone shooting at them or trying to stab them or whatever the case may be. So I hope they clean that up a bit. Like I can understand if you throw like a netting grenade or something like that and they get all tangled up and they can't move and they become a vulnerable target. But if you're in a physical wrestling match with someone, right, and you get the upper hand and you've got them pinned to the ground, really, they've got cover, at least half cover. So I'm not sure if the penalties sort of cancel each other out. It was interesting you said I like this change for distracted and vulnerable. I could never wrap my head around doing a trick that only gave you +2, but if you were to do another action in the same turn, you'd be just back to normal. So what was the point? Or as you said, you had to wait till your next turn, and it just seemed like a waste. So yeah, that's really cool.
Well, the point was basically only if you rolled a raise, then they were shaken as well, which made it halfway to being wounded. But other than that, no. I've always liked tricks and tests of wills, but they don't get used that much, and I'm hoping with these changes they get used a lot more.
We should mix them with gambling then. Put them all together in one skill: gambling and wrestling. Tricks, test the wills.
Yep.
I just want to congratulate Gary, by the way. You said tentacles, and he didn't act. He didn't do anything, man. That was wow.
I've been fapping for the last 5 minutes. I was on a Google Quest search for hentai porn. Is that the one with the tentacles? I don't remember.
Yeah. Does that come under performing or under investigation?
I was trying to persuade my dong into doing something, and I failed. There was a performance check in there somewhere, but I was distracted and vulnerable.
Do these extra states, are they going to cause confusion on the gaming table? Like, I really like the idea of it, but that's added to what is normally a fast, furious, and fun thing, isn't it? Or am I just reading too much into it?
No, it's not. It's replacing something that's already in there. So it's replacing
giving it a name.
Yeah. Those states were kind of already in there. They just weren't as potent as they are now. They weren't as universally useful. So my guess is those are going to see a lot more use, and tricks and tests of will are going to see a lot more use, and they are really going to upgrade those non-combat characters a lot, because now you can do tricks and tests of will with a very broad array of attributes and skills, and you don't have to specialize that much. You can still specialize to be a trick monster like before, but you don't have to, so it's a lot more versatile than it was before.
Yeah. Well, like you say in your notes, Paris, maybe with state cards or special tokens to remind people, or a cheat sheet at least at the table. But yeah, like Manuel said, it's basically these states were already in there. They were part of some rules and not given a name where you had to explain how tricks work every time. Now you can just say you are disabled, you are vulnerable or distracted, and everybody at some point, just like Shaken, will get to know what these states mean. Of course, it moves from 1, which was Shaken, to now having 4 or 5 or even 6, because there's another one that I found, Stunned. That one hasn't been talked about, so I don't know if it's going to make it to Savage Black, but we'll see.
I think Stun, though, is specific to that weapon. It's specific to an electric weapon. It's like a taser. It's designed to knock someone down and have them down. It's not quite the same. That was the way I read it anyway.
Yeah, right, it is. But they could introduce that as a more general stat or tack it onto some of the powers as soon as they get reworked for Savage Black. So, yeah, we might see that creeping into the core rulebook, even if only as something that's an effect from a certain power.
Yeah, that could be a trapping to electricity for the powers. And actually, I read the changes to the stun power, and it uses the stun condition, the stun state. It causes that state. And then, like you said, tasers in modern games. Can you see everybody going around now with with a taser gun? Because once you're stunned, I'll read it here. Stun. A character stunned by an electric weapon falls prone and can't take any actions or move. Attacks against him get the drop. at the start of each of his turn thereafter, he automatically makes a vigor roll as a free action to revive. Success means he revives but is shaken. A raise means he revives and is not shaken. So basically it works like the old shaken with stun, which they got away with because of the Benny economy, but you can't spend a Benny to remove the stun condition now. So I see this as a very powerful status. Granted, when you're targeted by that, you have to make a vigor roll to resist it. So at least you get a chance not to be stunned and spend a Benny on it if you miss it. But wow, it's a powerful state when you're stunned, right? You're really vulnerable.
Yeah. I like it. For me personally, it fills in the gap where you want to have combat, but you don't want dead bodies all over the place. Which I think, like at the moment, stunning someone or tasers now are pretty, you're shaking. It's kind of dull, it just doesn't really do what you want it to do. This, of course, now has the potential of being abused, as you said, where instead of shooting someone, you'll run around, shake them all, you'll stun them all, and then you'll shoot them, because that's going to be a lot easier, and you'll definitely get what you want. But again, that'll be a setting thing. It'll work well in superpowers. It'll work well in probably some sort of Shadowrun style game, Magic. It'll be all case based, I guess.
Yeah, I can see myself if I play a mage having the stun power, just disabling everybody, and then the fighter coming in behind, and he gets the drop, and he gets the target is prone, and then just finish them. That could be fun though. But
just as a side note, is that the thing that we're kind of afraid of when we look at new rules that are coming out? We're always looking for that. Because we've mentioned it a couple of times tonight now. People will gravitate to that because of X, right? We're worried that they'll go there because it covers 3 skills. We're worried it'll go to electrical powers because it's going to stun everyone. Is that what we're afraid of, or is that what we're analysing here when we look at the rules? Is what breaks the game?
I think it's a bit of both, actually, because, we are all GMs in here. We don't have anyone here who is just a player. So naturally, we want to be prepared for what the players come up so we can adjust our games accordingly and still make them fun for the players. And if something like stunned then raises its head, where we can, where we look at it and see, okay, I could exploit that 10 ways till Sunday, which probably isn't an expression. So if it isn't, I just made it up. And I'm dreading to see what the players can come up with, because then we just get into this vicious circle of having to feel tougher and tougher opposition just so they don't end up getting stunned all the time. Or we have to tell the players, yeah, there's this new cool part or this new cool feature in the rules, and we're not going to use that at this table, which will the players make feel kind of bad, because maybe they looked at it and thought, yeah, that's really cool, I'm looking forward to using that. And then you're just saying that now we're not using that because I don't want to work around it all the time. Or maybe that kind of also conveys the message of, I don't trust you to be responsible with that new feature, which is always a bad message to bring to a table. So that's something, I'm guessing the new stunt status, that's something that's going to have to be discussed at the table if it makes it into Savage Black in its current form, because it is really powerful. Granted, you get a free roll at the start of each subsequent turn, so you get a free roll, and even if you are shaken, that still means you get to roll to unshake as soon as it's no, it's not around at his turn. Damn it! So he doesn't even get to roll. So he has to spend a Benny.
Or spend a Benny.
Yeah, that is powerful. Damn. Maybe I personally, that would be a change I would introduce to stunt. Would be like, you get the free roll at the start of each subsequent round, so that when it's your turn, you still have to roll if you're not shaken anymore. That would maybe take a bit of the sting out of it. But yeah,
It's funny because I look at where it says you can't spend a Benny to automatically remove that status. I often wonder who that gets aimed at, whether it's the player or the GM. You know, because if the players are getting all stealthy and stunning people and need people out of the way for X amount of time, and the GM just flips out a GM Benny and goes, nah, he's back up again. Because whatever the player can do, the GM can do. So I actually think that's probably there more to stop the GM than it is for the player, but I could be wrong.
No, that's a fair point. That's absolutely a fair point. That's a GM I probably wouldn't want to play with, but
no.
Unless in the next few minutes it's revealed why he did that and it was part of something really cool. But yeah, overall, yeah, I see your point.
I'm looking at these rules more along the lines of what Paris said, like what's going to be the go-to, who's going to be the stun locker, and all of that kind of stuff. But that's mainly because my DMing or GMing background is playing at the local gaming store. Now, I play at Nerd Haven, my local gaming store, and we do drop-ins. So anybody can show up at my table. And unlike Paris' situation where he's dealing with kids that are coming to him and he's teaching them how to play the game, the people that show up at my table know how to play the game. I get the rules lawyers and all of this stuff. And I tell you, the worst one that I ever had to deal with was the frickin' 5th edition monk. And this, he knew the rules. I tell you, we were playing this one. He was up in a tower. This tower had like an air elemental in it, and it was lifting it up high into the sky. So once they broke the air elemental free and it disappeared back to its plane, well, of course, the tower's going to come crashing down to the ground. So the monk figured he could just jump out of this tower window and fall hundreds of feet to the ground, and then use like a couple key points or chi points, whatever you want to call them, to stop, because they have like this falling spell thing that they can cast where they can, eliminate all the damage. And I'm just like, this really just upsets me in general, because he's like Bruce Lee. He's Kung Fu master, can do a few extra things, the character build that he had, but now all of a sudden he's like basically, breaking the laws of physics. And I know it's a stupid fantasy game and physics sometimes don't come into it, but it's just one of many steps. The other one was Fireball. He figured, I cast Fireball into a hallway. One of his things is he could spend a point to dodge like certain attacks and stuff like that. Now, if you're in a room and there's beds, bunks, chests, dressers, whatever, I'm going to give it to you. But you're in a hallway that is a 10 by 10 basically cube in a line, and he wanted to use this spell, and sort of rules as written says that he can do this, and it's the weirdest thing. So maybe I've been once bitten, twice shy kind of a thing, but that's what I'm looking at. I just want to make sure that they don't do silly things like stun lock things and stuff like that, because it's just like there comes a point when as a GM I'm just like, F this, I'm done. This is just dumb is what it boils down to.
Yeah, I think we're going to see how it goes after we've played it a bit. When Savage Worlds Deluxe came out in 2012, I welcomed the changes, and it worked great for me. And I look at the changes they have now, and it's actually less changes than last time. And I'm going to welcome them too if they end up in the rules, and we'll play and see how it goes. Just like when the new Shaken rule came out, a lot of people freaked out, and I tried them and they worked fine for me, even though I was a bit concerned. But it worked great, and now I wouldn't go back to how they were. So I guess it's just about practice and trying it out.
So with the Shaken rule, the old Shaken rule, you could basically shake lock somebody. That was sort of the gist of it, right? You could just and so the nice part about these new rules, I feel that Savage Worlds has already been through that stupid 5th edition monk hump, for lack of a better term. You know what I mean? Like they had the shake lock rule already in effect. They changed it so that the game would play better. I'm not worried about them doing things, or at least I know that they would be aware of the shake lock rule, and they're going to try and probably do whatever they can to keep that from falling back into the game So I'm not so worried about the rules
but
changes.
Now they're bringing stun, which is even more powerful as a stun lock, because you can't spend bennies to just say, okay, shaken goes away now. But yeah, like we said, you still get to roll vigor to resist it, which might help a little bit here, but we'll see.
Yeah. You'll always have somebody that tries to take advantage of it.
Yeah, that's how it works. Creative combat table, basically for tricks and test of wills. When you score a raise, instead of automatically getting a shaken result, you roll on this table, and it can give you different benefits. It could be inspiration, where you get a Benny. You can recover a wound or fatigue. You can do shaken, and then there are other ones here. Let me bring up this table. So,
wow, Burrow, way to be prepared. Do you need 5?
Yeah.
Well, you can.
The whole card. Basically, you get an extra card for initiative that you can keep to yourself. Next round, you get a 4 of diamonds. You could actually swap that card and put your 10 in there, which I think is pretty cool, and also a free turn. So the benefits are really cool. I like them, but as Paris mentioned here, is it necessary? Does it slow down the game? What do you guys think?
Well, I'd say, yeah, it could slow down the game a bit, but it's not like it's going to come up every round. The way I see it, if this makes it into Savage Black, it's going to be as mostly done as an incentive to actually use the new tricks and tests of will rules even more. And it's really going to benefit those players who build the support characters, who are not the frontline fighters, and who really just want to help out the team with tricks and with tests of will. And if they actually specialize their characters into it, they will see a lot of use from the creative combat table. So those players get rewarded for not playing the combat monster and instead being the supporter, while the combat monsters get their reward for, well, they can go up, they can just beat up all day long and have their cool combat moments and their great fighter scenes where they swing from ship to ship and kick the captain in the teeth and stuff like that. But now the support characters get also a lot of rewarding scenes and ideas out of just being the supporter. And I quite like it. So I really hope the creative combat table, maybe with a different name, but all in all, I hope the concept makes it into Savage Black. Yeah. Paris, you're nodding. Let us know what you think.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I'm just yeah, this is not a visual medium. No, I like it. I like that there are, I think what we're seeing here is a spread out of possibilities, which is really what Savage Worlds is supposed to be about. It's minimal rules with multiple possibilities to make the game exciting and fun. So the creative combat table, I just hope that it doesn't become, I mean, this will happen at however the tables run, but there really needs to be a role-playing element attached to this creative table. It can't just be you roll, I got a whole card, do you know what I mean? There's a few things that I've seen creeping into these rules that are starting. The more rules that you get, the less role play comes into it because you're trying to remember more things. So I love it, but I've got to see it played out a bit more before I get really, really excited about it.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean, but that's something the settings, the new setting books could easily do if they just theme this table and give the GM ideas of how to the GM and the players ideas of how to work it into the narrative. So kind of like ETU does, because ETU does have a lot of tables and stuff, but everything you roll on there gives you ideas of how to work it into your personal campaign or storyline. So it never feels like just a boring roll that gives gives you a mechanical benefit. Because on one of those tables, you roll, and if you rolled something rather well, you get a clue. But the table entry doesn't just say, oh, you rolled an 8, get a clue. It gives you ideas. It gives you an example, and if you've got a bit of fantasy, which you probably have, since you're playing role-playing games at your table, you will know how to mold that example into the game you actually have at your table to give cool stuff out to the players.
Yep.
Gary, any thoughts?
Dong.
Of course. Oh, I mean the fact that it slows down. I mean it will, but as you guys mentioned, it's not like tricks and test of wills are going to come up every round, or will they? I mean, so let me turn this around and ask you guys: do you think that we sort of overstress or freak out about the speed of Savage Worlds too much? Like every time something will slow it down, even for a minute, we sort of buck and say, no, we don't want the game to slow down. We want to keep it as fast as possible.
Personally, I can only speak for myself, and I try to be cautious about adding on new things, which comes from my work on Savage Shadowrun 2nd edition, because I put a lot of stuff in there, and the first iterations made it feel not like Savage Worlds anymore, because it was really slow in all aspects. So I'm on the lookout for things that may slow down the game. But I'm not opposed to any idea that would mean a small slowdown, something like the creative combat table. I have an in-depth look at it, and will try it out at the game. And the creative combat table even came up in our actual play with Scott that one time, and that was like 3 additional seconds it took, because of the one time I actually used a test of will. So no, that's not the creative combat table is not going to have a major impact. And to answer your question overall, no. As for myself, I don't think I am.
For me, no, I don't balk at anything that may slow things down. I mean, unless it drags it out and I've got to read 500 charts or something. For me, Savage Worlds, for the most part, is something that I can play off the cuff. I don't need to keep referencing the book. So the only time that I sort of pause and think, is that necessary, is if I have to consult a chart or dig into a book. But if it's on my GM screen, it's not a problem. That's about it. The beauty of Savage Worlds is that, unlike 5th edition, as Gary pointed out, he doesn't have to know everything. You know, it all just flows, and we add +2 or -2 here, there, and as we see the game fit, and we just roll it out. If we start getting into the habit of having to consult a table for everything that we do with arrays, then I'll start having a concern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, DM pro tip. Be prepared. You know what I mean? Have the frickin' creative combat table sitting somewhere where you can just easily reference it if it needs to be used. Fast, furious, and fun. It's kind of a weird thing for me, because it's not about being fast. The speed of the game is not as important to me as the flow of the game, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't care if the waves are coming in fast and going out fast. I just want them to be continually coming in and continually going out, whether they speed up or slow down. As long as the flow is not broken, that's where I'm happy. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to stop to consult something. Everybody take 5. I got to look this up. Everybody take 5. I got to look this up, because that's like full brakes, full stop. You're just sitting in the middle of the highway waiting for the car to start again and the story to carry on. As long as there's a flow, we're good. We're golden. Be prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. And all these changes, they won't affect the pace that much, because they can all fit on the standard GM screen. We are not seeing a ridiculous influx in material. We are seeing changed things, and we are seeing some few new things, but everything still fits on a GM screen or can fit on some cue cards you can have laying beside your dice tray.
You know, I'm just going to go off on a tangent here for a second while we're sort of talking about this topic, because I find, like, on other podcasts, you guys hear this all the time. We play in a quote-unquote sandbox as opposed to video games where you can hop into a world, let's say ETU, for example, because we were talking about it earlier, and you just sit down and play a game. And I just want to say, BS, that's garbage. Every time I've ever played a game, I have never sat down at a table with a DM that hasn't had some kind of prep. And anytime you go off the beaten track and go to the next village over to do something, the game is just hooped. Like, as a dungeon master, I have prepared. I know you hear it from Jib a lot. He's like, oh, if you want to write your story, go pick up a pen and go F and write it. Well, I just want to say F that. That's bullshit. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, when me as a DM anyway, I have material prepared. I've got my storyline, my idea, and we're not going to deviate from it. We're going to stick to the frickin' script because it's going to make for better gameplay because I'm prepared for it. I'm not prepared for you guys to go to the next town over where I got to make a new character and give this guy motivations and reasons and things to do and all sorts of crap like that. Anyways, rant off. Just save that for another podcast. It just drives me mental.
Another podcast because I'm kind of the opposite.
Yeah,
I have to be very flexible in my games because I get thrown curveballs every second.
No, I know what you're saying. Curveball's one thing. Like, there might be a slide here or there, but if you're going to completely like deviate from the story, that I'm going to put the brakes on. I'm like, seriously, I'm pumping the brakes. We showed up to go kill the Lich King. We're not going to the next town over to smack out the Black Dragon that's sort of circling around. It's just not happening. If you want to smack them, if you want to go smack the Black Dragon, we'll pump the brakes right now. I'll go build the Black Dragon adventure, and then we'll come back and we'll go from there. But yeah, anyways,
that's definitely a whole other episode.
Yeah, we'll let you smack your Black Dragon quietly.
Sweet.
Gary.
What's next in the agenda, Lamoureux? Now that I've gone on my tangent.
Well, we got extreme range. I think that was in the sci-fi companion, which basically it means you can fire or shoot at 4 times the range. So giving you a big penalty, basically. It's one rule I haven't really used, even with the sci-fi companion, and the reason why is while Savage Worlds uses a lot of maps and minis, you don't always have to. But if you've laid out a map on the table, or even play online with images and that kind of thing, it's range, right? A map is 24 by 30. Some of them are basically a bit larger. And then if you play online, if you want a map that's larger than that, then your screen, you're either going to end up having to scroll through the map a whole lot, or the squares on the map are going to be so small that you can barely see what's going on. So to me, every time I play with bows or even guns, things on the battle map are rarely over 20 or 30 inches on the map, so it never really comes up. Now, if you play Theater of the Mind, that might come up where a guy wants to be in a building, 2 or 3 blocks away and take a sniper shot, but I don't see this being used a whole lot.
No, not really. I think I've never encountered a game where somebody was using a weapon over medium range besides chases. So on a battle map, no, never. There were a few times of medium range because somebody was using a bow and somebody else was like 13 inches away or 14, but that's about it. So yeah, it's nice to have, but I don't see it getting used all that often.
Yeah, weird
Where's your
wars.
sense of fun going, guys? Come on, this is Alan Quatermain taking out that guy at extremely long range, and you know you can't let this guy get away because if he gets away, he's going to bring 10 packs of orcs over the hill, or you want to stir up the army that's on the hill, so you take out the commander from 100 meters away, whatever it is. Sure, you can't do it on a battle map, but you couldn't do aircraft combat on a battle map either, or tanks, or whatever the case may be, artillery. This is cool. I love it. Leave it in there. Sure, it won't be used every day.
Let me set the scene for you. You're playing Weird Wars. Pick an era. You're apparently in a field. Like out here, we have the plains in Alberta. In Canada, there's every country's got their flat plains, desert plains, whatever. Like, extreme range shots aren't going to happen inside of a city building where you're going to come up against. So, you know what I mean? It has to be very specific. How are you going to get that extreme range shot where not only you can see your guy, but then pick him off? Like, it's very, very, very specific. Because you would need, like, a long range. He turns one corner and your extreme shot just goes out the frickin' window. So, I don't know. I could
it takes one small paragraph in your rulebook, man. At least it's there.
Yep. I just think I should extreme shoot Eric from here.
No, I mean, it's good to have it. I was just, I was just saying that I don't see that come up in my games very often, but it's good to have it.
Well, it's funny, though. Like, now that it's out and it's in the wild and the words have been spoken, there's going to be some extreme shooting coming up in Wise Guys.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. Could make it interesting.
Nevada
if we
desert,
use that
man.
rule.
Nevada desert. There's a lot of straight lines.
Oh, yeah. All right, next one, because we're sort of running out of time here. Grappling, we talked about it earlier. Basically, instead of opposed fighting, it's opposed athletics. And then, you can, to break free, you become entangled first or with a raise, bound. So you're really in a tight spot, and you break free with opposed strength. Which is interesting because strength, it's one of those attributes that besides damage and encumbrance rarely is used. So now, before you could use agility or strength to break free, now it's only strength. Maybe some edges will let you use agility instead. Like maybe someone with the acrobat edge, I might let that person use agility instead. But other than that, and then if the grappler is shaken and doesn't immediately spend a Benny, the grappling is over. That victim is free. And then of course you can cause damage with strength damage while grappling. And like I mentioned earlier, martial artists, characters with the martial artist edge may use fighting instead of athletics for any of the roles above. Paris talked about, the brute fighters having to maybe branch out a little bit more now, because before basically everybody has fighting, or maybe I'd say 9 out of 10 characters every time you play. Even the mage will take a d4 in fighting, so they got a decent parry, right? But now, because of that, everybody could get out of the grapple easy. But now, if you don't have athletics, someone comes at you and want to grapple you, I mean, you're in trouble.
Very
so
true.
that's why I mentioned the maybe it's the wrestling revival now, where we're going to see a lot of javelin throwing wrestlers that can swim and climb and chase you down across the hall. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yes.
Go ahead, Paris. You're the guest.
Look, I know it's funny, like now we're going to see an increase in wrestling, but in most games, unless it's a combat specific, military based, or there's a lot of shooting involved. The fighting is generally, hand to hand, fists, no weapons, and so to see wrestling to see martial arts get a bit of an expansion, because up until now it's just been a trapping. I hit you, you hit me, but I might do it with a closed fist, you might do it with an open fist. Other than that, it hasn't been sort of very tactical, if anything. So this adds an element of tactics to the game that I think's been missing in that part, and the fact that it would seem to hopefully make players think, well, actually, I need another die here instead of putting it all in, fighting or whatever. I think that's only a good thing for the game. And if all the characters decide to become, like WWE wrestlers and running around grappling everything that they find, you're going to have to come up with something that makes the grapple not such a, not such an appealing thing, or that there'll be counters for it. But other than that, no, I think it's cool. I think it's a really good idea.
Dong.
Dong.
All I'm going to say is they're going to have to attach agility to it, because there's going to be an endless barrage of players that are going to be like, well, I want to use my agility to get out. You're just going to see it all the time. It happens
but only
in 50.
if they take up the greased up edge.
Right. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, you'll see. I'm pretty sure I can. I would almost bet 100% pretty much I don't want to say anything about it, but yeah, it'll be strength and it'll be agility. It's going to have to be, because and if it isn't in the book, you're going to just see every player that you come up against is like, I want to use agility. Agility is also
say no, because it looks like not no. I mean, you've got to come up with a better reason than just no. But if it seems that they're looking for a mechanical way to bring people away from agility as being the sole trait that everyone jumps on, if you go high agility and you want to be a good shooter or good at fighting, that's fine. Go with agility. But if Gartar Modern comes around the corner and grabs you, then you're going to be stuck, and you're going to need your strong friend to help. It's all about. We hear this all the time, that Savage World characters are all the same, right? So to have a bit of variety now is a good thing. I mean, not that we never had variety before, that it's always been a stereotype that all characters are the same. But if there's something in the rules that makes people think twice, instead of just going for the same thing over and over again. I mean, how many times have you played with guys that only play a mage, or they only play a ranger, or they only play same character and use the same skills? They might have different names and look differently, but they're ultimately the same character because they know that X, Y, and Z works. So we're just adding a couple more letters to make it more appealing and more widespread.
Yeah, and the point is, if you are entangled, you can still perform actions. You just can't move and you are distracted. So that basically means if you are only entangled and not bound, you could still go for your own test of will. Yeah, well, you can't anymore because they are not guaranteed to shake them. But you could just whack the guy who's trying to hold you over the head really hard and hope to at least get a shaken result, because that would free you as well. So it's not like you don't have options. If you are bound, then you have options. But then you don't have as many options. But if you are bound, then you have a whole other set of trouble.
Yeah, it's going to make it that the rest of your group has to help you out, really.
See, I'd accept an agility move if the particular character was very nimble, but I might also accept a test of wills to get out of a grapple by being really, really gross or getting erect or something. I don't know. That's going to let go.
Test of wills, test of kills, testicles. What? That's
just the kills. Yeah. All right.
Yo, motherfuckers, you all best back up. I always got a gun, I always come strap up. This ain't a game of pool, it ain't no time for no rack up. It's the motherfucking time for the motherfucking wrap up. Anyone who disagrees will get smack up. See me back in school when I shouldn't have learned to add up. Found a gun on the floor, instead I picked that up. Anyway, sorry, I'm motherfucking back up. What I'm trying to say is it's time for the wrap up. Yeah,
This one goes out to all the ladies and all the men out there. Everyone in the front row, grease up. Yeah. Oh yeah. Tasty. Wrap up.
That's it for part 2, episode 48 of the Savage Black panel. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at thewildeye@gmail.com. You can get a hold of us on Google+. Also, at the Nerds International community on Google+. We're on Twitter at The Wild Eye. We are also on Patreon. Man, we're everywhere. www.patreon.com/The Wild Eye. We've changed our rewards a little bit, our goals. Instead of actual plays, which took a lot of our time we obviously didn't have, we decided to change those, and instead we'll be doing reviews. And finally, we're now on YouTube, in case you want to listen to the show from your YouTube. It's still just audio, but at least now it's on YouTube. Just look for us on there. So that's it for this episode. Next one coming soon, where we'll talk about the new powers, the revised powers anyway, and also test of wills, tricks, and optional setting rule, the wound cap. That should be interesting. Well, I know it is because I was there, I recorded it, but anyway, later, folks.
The Wild Eye Podcast is not affiliated with or endorsed by Pinnacle Entertainment Group or official Pinnacle licensees. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of the respected owners. All music and artwork is used with permission of Pinnacle Entertainment Group. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of the Wild Eye Podcast.